Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 699 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back. Once again, it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened across NXT and AEW this week. But not only that, this is a double Ultimate Preview episode. We are covering NXT Vengeance Day 2025 and AEW Grand Slam Australia. So, as you could guess, we have an absolute ton to talk about at the start of today's show. If you have already noticed, the Silver King sounds a little bit different. It is because we're doing something unique here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast today. I am going to attempt to tape an entire show while simultaneously sucking on Ricola drops. I don't know exactly what happened, but between our WWE episode and today, I've developed a sore throat. Hopefully that is all it is. I've already tested myself and it did go negative for COVID-19. So that is certainly positive, but I feel immensely under the weather. And, you know, despite all of that, realized, look, I got to get a show out for these people, right? That's what we do here. We deliver content for your ear holes, not just content, by the way, performance enhancing audio. And we have a lot of it to talk about here. And I can't exactly go into the weekend with two major shows on the horizon and not give you ultimate previews. So we're gutting through it. We're going to make this show happen. If I sound a little different, please forgive me. And if you hear some clicking around in my mouth, just know it's a Ricola drop and I'll be replacing them throughout this entire episode. I don't know if this has been done before, but we're going to see if we can accomplish that over the course of 45 minutes, an hour, however long I'm actually going to go right now before I pass out. So with all that said, let's kick off the show as we normally do with a reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
You know the drill. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we'll read it live right here on the show. Look, we're stuck at 480 reviews. WrestleMania is a couple months away. Can we get to 500 reviews? 5-star reviews, by the way. So we need 20 5-star reviews between today, February 13th, and mid-April WrestleMania. That's 2 months. I know how many of you listen to the podcast. I just told you how many reviews we have. Those numbers are nowhere near each other. So 20 of you who listen religiously, who are longtime listeners, who maybe are brand new listeners and love what you hear, drop those 5-star reviews. We would greatly appreciate that. As we get into today's show, as I said, we're going to talk NXT and AEW. This is the way the formatting is going to go. We're going to start off with NXT, just everything that happened on the program, not directly related to NXT Vengeance Day. Then we will hit you with your NXT Vengeance Day Ultimate Preview. We will move over to AEW, talk about everything that happened on AEW TV that does not directly relate to Grand Slam Australia. And then we will hit you with the Grand Slam Australia Ultimate Preview. But actually, before we get into any of that, and this is something else unique that I'm going to do here on the show, I wanted to share some social media posts that have recently been put up by Brendan Vink, so the former Duke Hudson in WWE and NXT. And the reason why I'm doing this is actually twofold. First, I don't mind resting my voice for a second. But second, obviously he was released from WWE recently, and he is kicking off his independent run in what I can only describe as the most unique way that I have ever seen. Everyone else is doing, chain breaking graphics, or they stay quiet for 90 days and then they show up at an indie or whatever the case might be. They try to burn bridges, do an interview, something like that. Duke Hudson, Brendan Vink, is debuting a social media series called Wrestling with Identity, where he's literally speaking with himself. What it seems like it is Brendan speaking with Duke. And again, it's one of the more unique things I've ever heard when it comes to professional wrestling. I felt like this was worth giving shine on the podcast. It's 3 minutes in total. There's only been 2 parts so far. I won't play the remaining parts as they go live on social media. You can follow him at 6'5". That's SIXFTFIIIIVE on Twitter, so you can see the rest of them. I promise you there's no relation between Duke and this show. We've never interviewed him. I don't speak with him on social media, nothing. That is how entertaining I have found both of these videos. So I'm going to play these for you right now. And just keep in mind, this is Duke Hudson, basically, speaking with himself.
Welcome to Wrestling with Identity. Do we have a name for you or us yet? I don't know. All right, well, let's get straight to the point. You've been fired, which might be breaking news to a lot of the people here. I don't think I've seen anything online, and you weren't a part of a group with budget cuts, right? So this really was more of a we hate you.
Yeah.
That's probably why you look so rough. I mean, I'm pulling it off. But now that the cat's out of the bag, how do you feel about wasting 6 years of your life in that building? I wouldn't say it was a waste. Come on. Think about everything that happened in your time there. Like what? Well, you and Bronny, for example. I mean, you started at the same time. You came up in Australia together. Now he's jumping off the top of cages at Survivor Series, and you're being written off TV again. Okay. Rhea, for example, she is a megastar. She grew up watching you wrestle in Australia. You love telling people that story. Right. Well, they overtook you. Your time was wasted. I can be happy for my friends and be disappointed in my own shortcomings at the same time. Oh, come on. You're free now. You can say whatever you want to say. Don't just stick to what you learn in media training. Tell me what you want to say. I don't know. I'm not done with you. We'll be right back.
So that was part one. Here's part two.
And we're back. The question of the day. Should you have turned on the university? No. I love the university. I believed in it. Oh, really? We were the heart and soul of that show for 2 years. And look at everything we accomplished. We won tag team gold. We got action figures. They put us in the video game. Well, congratulations. You settled for the minimum. Those were childhood dreams, but we deserve so much more. Not you and them, but us. We can walk the walk and we can talk the talk. But you forget what we're capable of because of some imaginary ceiling they put over the top of you and your beloved university. Now imagine if we turned on the university like originally planned. Maybe we'd be in a very different situation. Maybe you wouldn't have a reason to sit around on your ass and mope all day. Okay, well, I'm proud of what we did together. But look at what turning did for the others. Look at the undeserving scumbags that benefited from the university's hard work. Dempsey, JC, Ridge for crying out loud. I mean, come on. Okay, if you start taking shots, I'm out. What do you mean? What else are we here for? Grab that shovel and start digging. Okay, this is why we are where we are. What? Why? You could never keep your big mouth shut. I didn't keep my big... You didn't speak up for us enough. What was the point? You said it. We weren't chosen. We weren't allowed to mess up or step out of line. We weren't allowed to fail upwards, and you knew that. All right, so you admit it. You admit that you stopped trying and you gave up.
Like I said, this is one of the more interesting things I've ever seen an independent wrestler do. It's only 2 parts in, each of them 90 seconds. Honestly, I can't wait for more. So I just wanted to give him some shine. Don't know what's going to come of it. What's going to happen at the end of 90 days? Is he going to do a tell-all interview? Certainly going to reach out, going to try to get one. But yeah, so Duke Hudson, Brendan Vink, 2 thumbs up, man. Keep up the great work so far. A reminder for all of you, you can find us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. We not only have every audio from every episode posted over there, but of course, video clips of our interviews, and we will be doing a lot more interviews in 2025. So please subscribe on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news analysis highlights, all of that good stuff. Obviously, you can send in questions and comments for the show. Also, this weekend, we will have pre- and post-show polls, both for NXT Vengeance Day and AEW Grand Slam Australia. So you'll be able to vote. And for the instant analysis for NXT Vengeance Day, of course, we will discuss your pre- and post-show votes. We will work them in to our final grade. So with all of that said, we're going to get into the remainder of the show. A reminder, there are timestamps in the episode description. So if you want to jump between NXT and AEW, or you're listening to us right before the weekend and you just want to hear the ultimate previews of Vengeance Day or Grand Slam Australia, you will have the opportunity to do that. As always, though, I do hope you listen to the entire show. Kicking off with NXT, there was a big headline on this show, and it was one that certainly was not advertised whatsoever. Ricky Starks debuted ahead of the main event of NXT simply by walking into the middle of the crowd with a microphone. Immediate chance. He said if NXT is the future of professional wrestling, an absolute superstar is needed. If it's the hottest brand, it needs the hottest free agent. Starks promised to turn NXT upside down, promising the revolution is about to be televised. It's pretty clear this was completely unplanned, with WWE just taking advantage of his recent free agency by getting him on TV as soon as possible. And getting over can confirm, by the way, that Ricky has been signed by WWE. I mean, you saw him on television. You don't need us to tell you that, but nevertheless, I can't confirm it. If this had been planned, there'd have been a Titantron, entrance music, a logo, a shirt, the whole 9 yards. Dude was out there in pants and a wife beater. Crystal clear that Tony Khan decided to release all these guys immediately after the Royal Rumble, the others being Malachi Black and Miro. But hey, at least to release them, right? Not so much for Rey Fenix. So it's really tough to take that much away from what we saw Starks do on television, other than the fact that he's now with this company and debuting on NXT, which is definitely the right decision. If LA Knight can start in NXT, so can Starks. Knight is obviously bigger and stronger comparatively, but they are similarly fueled by charisma and mic skill. Plus, we talked about the men's main event division needing a major boost on this brand. If they keep Trick Williams around, you add Starks to a roster that includes Trick, Obafemi, Ethan Page, and others starting to bubble up, that is truly going to help NXT rebuild that division in a meaningful way. I presume we'll get more from him next Tuesday now that NXT has a week to kind of figure everything out and exactly how they want to debut him. But it was a hell of a surprise on a random Tuesday, an incredibly well-kept secret by WWE. That was particularly important. And you immediately saw an outpouring of affection for him from his friends, Jade Cargill, CM Punk. I don't believe Cody Rhodes wrote anything on social media, but other superstars did as well. Of note is Starks recently won the Defy Championship off Kenta just a few days ago. Kenta, by the way, has re-signed with Pro Wrestling Noah, or I should say signed back with Pro Wrestling Noah, his original promotion. But Defy is the same promotion where Swerve Strickland and Darby Allin made their names. Now, WWE generally lets newly signed talent finish up independent dates, and one assumes they will allow that to happen here, especially given what they're doing in the independents with WWE ID and such, though they don't have a relationship with Defy. But I cannot imagine they'd be fond of Starks holding that title for an extended period of time and working a long stretch of dates. So he may be dropping it sooner than later, but I got to imagine they'll allow him to defend the title and eventually drop it at some point. Also of note, WWE never said his name, Ricky Starks. Didn't say it on the show, didn't say it on social media, didn't say it on YouTube or anything like that. On social media, in a video that he posted, Starks called himself the Absolute One. My presumption is that since Ricky Starks is literally his real name, they're just working on the trademark and licensing issue. And if that does not get resolved quickly, they just want to protect themselves. It's also possible that he's choosing a new name, though recent signees have been allowed to keep their names. Jade Cargill, Stephanie Vaquer, Ethan Page, just a couple of examples. Now, Jade is her real name. Stephanie and Ethan are both gimmick names. Vaquer is also her two middle names. Stephanie and Vaquer are her, I believe, middle names. But I digress. I still think it's a licensing deal. If WWE worked it out with Jade, they can work it out with Ricky. They're literally best friends. I can't imagine that they wouldn't see eye to eye, or that Jade perhaps wouldn't, ensure he gets the same deal that she got for her name, or whatever the case might be. So I don't really see any reason why it won't be quote unquote Ricky Starks in WWE, but even if it's not, as long as they pick a similar name, I'm sure it won't be that big of a deal. The main news item is that Starks is in WWE. We all knew it was coming. And this guy, man, he has such a support system. Cody, Punk, Jade, The Undertaker is a fan of his. Apparently, he helped train Michelle McCool when she made one of her Royal Rumble returns a couple of years ago. So Starks is incredibly well-liked, incredibly well-connected within WWE. And now he's part of NXT. I'll tell you what, straight up, this man should be in the main event of Stand and Deliver WrestleMania weekend against Obafemi. If you want to do a three-way with Trick Williams, it's fine. He should walk out of that event as the NXT champion. They should not waste any time, just like they did with Ethan Page. Strap this mother effer up and just go with it. That is how good Starks can be and how much he can elevate this brand. Let's talk about everything else that happened on NXT. Bayley fought Cora Jade. This opened the show. Cora either had new music or it was somehow new to me. Either way, it was distinctive and it was enjoyable. Bayley was much more crispier than Monday night. Tight belly to belly midway through, Bayley to belly midway through. Jade answered with a gut-wrench suplex. Bayley came back with a swinging something. I think she lost her grip. Bayley's original NXT entrance played, and that was a distraction from Roxanne Perez running out in her Bayley Halloween costume that she wore a few years ago. Bayley hit a flying elbow drop to Cora's back, attacked Roxy ringside, only to eat a double underhook DDT on the mat. Jade then hit another inside the ring and got the clean upset victory. Perez looked somewhat shell-shocked, and Ava whispered something to Julia in the locker room. As Roxy and Cora conversed, Ava obviously added Jade to the match. We knew that was coming. Perez tried to hug her, but Bayley shoved them into one another and then hit Bayley to belly on Roxy. Hot opener that accomplished a lot. The addition of Cora to the title match, it was immensely telegraphed from the standpoint that any regular watcher could have told you it was happening like 3 weeks ago. It's not exactly the end of the world. I just wish it was done a little bit more creatively. Solid action throughout with Bayley and Jade. Certainly an excused loss, but it was slightly problematic coming immediately on the back of Bayley beating Lyra Valkyria like 24 hours earlier. We'll discuss this in greater detail momentarily when we get to the Ultimate Preview, but it was a good opener for the show. Now, before the ensuing match, D'Angelo family and Izzy Dame commiserated backstage, with Stacks apologizing to Tony D'Angelo for being on edge recently. Tony said it's all good, and since it's a cage match, he's got to do it on his own anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we had the North American Championship defended inside a steel cage, D'Angelo against Ridge Holland. This main evented the show. Ridge avoided Tony, whose body flew into the cage. D'Angelo then dodged a flying headbutt from Holland, who came back with a snowplow. Tony powerbombed him into the cage wall, hit a great spear for a false finish. Dame pulled a crowbar out of her jacket, tried to throw it in the ring. Stacks stopped her, stole it away. And then he just threw it right back in the exact same spot. Holland won the tug of war. He drilled D'Angelo a couple times with the crowbar. He also did an extra running forearm with the crowbar, attached almost to his arm, right to the back of Tony's head for a false finish. D'Angelo stopped another shot by raking the eyes. He did a crowbar shot to the back and then landed a spinebuster to retain the title. Holland attacked D'Angelo family ringside when the doors opened, with the guys fighting all the way to the back. Sean Spears' weirdos approached the cage. Izzy drilled Tony in the knee with the crowbar. Then she choke slammed Adriana Rizzo. That allowed the guys to absolutely destroy D'Angelo with a ton of chair shots, and then an avalanche C4 from Spears into the chair. Predictable, but a well-done heel turn. Good faction formation, attack, whole 9 yards. Brooks Jensen, he just does not fit the aesthetic of the other three. Maybe that's on purpose. It worked even if my interest in this particular group remains immensely minimal. I will say Izzy does help them. The cage match was actually quality, given Holland's limitations. Despite that, it was still
big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
And that's what we got to see. The false finish with the crowbar was extremely well done. It was a great kick out by D'Angelo. I have no clue what Holland is going to do now unless he finds another tag team partner. It's going to be interesting to see whether Spears takes the title by the time Stand and Deliver rolls around. I'd like to see a multi-man ladder match just to elevate some of the mid-carders in the division. I don't necessarily just want D'Angelo and Spears, but we still have 2 months until that show. They're doing NXT Roadblock as a TV special at the Madison Square Garden Theater, I believe, in New York. So that could be a pretty interesting show, and I wouldn't be surprised if this particular match is on it. Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura fought Hank and Tank and NQCC. This used the proper rules with 3 legal men simultaneously. For Axiom watched from the crow's nest. Miles Bourne got squashed between Hank and Tank ringside. Briggs looked great on a hot tag. Bourne did a power slam looking exactly like Randy Orton. There was a pretty hype 3-way exchange offense with Briggs hitting a choke release powerbomb on Hank before Tank splashed 5 dudes ringside and hit a real unique wheelbarrow toss slam for a false finish. Briggs then took Hank's head off with a lariat before Inamura did what I can only describe as a flying squirrel splash for the win. It was great. Fraxium then just offered a title match because they were impressed, which you all know I absolutely hate. The match, though, it totally exceeded expectations. Inamura was awesome when he got action. Briggs reminded precisely why his ceiling is so high. Hank and Tank remain a super entertaining team, even if they conversely have a low ceiling. Bourne and Tavian Heights remain underutilized to an immense degree, but it feels like they're just about to get their opportunity. This is the second match in a row where they have truly shined. 3.75 stars, B+, a legitimate highlight on Tuesday night, and I would not have expected that coming into the show. The Heritage Cup was on the line. Lexus King defending against JDC, who, of course, is Fandango, just to be clear. He had a Falcon Arrow, Tope con Hero, plus a one-step flying leg drop for a false finish. King hit the ropes to prevent a second. Then he hit a draping coronation to retain the cup. JDC was extremely solid. King left a lot to be desired, coming off what appeared to have been an improved game when he was a babyface. Through 2 weeks, this turn back heel has been a bad decision. Lost his spark, did not get heat. That coupled with the Heritage Cup rule changes makes this immensely frustrating. I could see a situation where like Noam Dar comes back and he wants to win the cup and restore the rules and do the whole 9 yards. That's probably the direction they're heading. That's just a guess. But, bastardizing the Heritage Cup, making King heel and having him wrestle poor matches and do poor gimmick work, it's just a huge downer from what he was doing just a couple weeks ago. So Ruka backstage convinced Zarya to train with her at the beach over the weekend. Nikita Lyons, I totally forgot this chick even existed. She interrupted, saying that she would look better at the beach and one win doesn't make a tag team. And Zarya and Sora were like, okay, so you would look better at the beach. Like, good for you. She was giving a ton of undue attitude and like smacking her lips and making these weird movements every time she said a sentence. Most of what she said didn't even make sense. So that led to a match where, thank heavens, Zarya beat Lyons. Nikita, in her atrocious gear, just sat on Zarya's back in a lazy camel clutch. She missed a Vader bomb with Zarya hitting a spear and an F5, which, by the way, needs a name. This is the woman's finisher. She still doesn't have a name. She got the win. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Stop trying to make Nikita Lyons happen. She's not going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
It is seriously shocking that Nikita is still being given opportunities in NXT. Terrible promo, terrible wrestler, terrible character work. There's a certain segment of the audience that like wants to see her on their screen. I understand that, even if I don't personally get it, like at all. Where is the upside with Nikita Lyons? There isn't any, and that's just the truth. Fatal Influence backstage gassed each other up, saying Stephanie Vaquer doesn't have any friends and won't be able to handle them Saturday. Kalani Jordan came in demanding another title shot if Fallon Henley retains. She denied, saying Lonnie already got her rematch.
Thank you!
But Lonnie said Fallon hasn't fought this version of her. It's been 3 weeks, Lonnie. Calm down, chill out. Jada Parker moved in, still having beef with Jordan, also saying she's focused on the title, claiming she has next. Then Ashanti the Adonis popped in saying his girl, Carmen Petrovic, would deserve the next shot. The last thing we need is Lonnie getting another title shot when she's just barely starting to figure out character work. We've been praising her the last couple of weeks, especially last week. It's moving in the right direction. Do not put this woman in another title match. But a triple threat between those three for a number one contendership would absolutely work. Parker, if changing the title, Petrovic, if just doing a match. Those should be the respective winners based on the scenario. Andre Chase was moping around backstage when Cale Dixon was thrilled and super energetic to see him, shaking his hand with gusto, introducing him to Uriah Connors. They tried to get him to go out with them to party. Chase said he can't do that on a school night, to which Connors reminded, hey, Chase U's dead. There is no school. So Chase just kind of wandered off. All right, let's shit or get off the pot with Chase U. It's either going to be reborn or it's not at this juncture. It's dragging out a little bit too much. By the way, we wondered last week what was up with Thea Hale. Apparently she was injured. The Chase U closure allowed her to kind of be written off TV simultaneously just while she was healing. She returned recently at NXT live events in Florida, so one would presume she will be back on TV sooner than later. Great news, of course, for Thea. So that wraps up NXT. It allows us to move over to our NXT Vengeance Day Ultimate Preview. We're going to go over all six matches on this card, tell you what happened on the Go Home NXT. Of course, give you our prediction at the end. We will give you a pre-show expectation grade for NXT Vengeance Day as a whole. The first thing to note, of course, is that a new faction will be debuting on the show. We don't know their names. Technically, we don't know the faction name either. It seems like it's four guys. One of them, Saquon Sugars, the former Lucky Ali in the Independents, who was signed, as I mentioned last week, alongside Javon Evans, but has not really made TV. The aesthetic for them looks pretty damn cool, but there's really nothing for us to preview or judge until we actually see what happens on the show. That should be fulfilled on Saturday. Tag team championships will be on the line for Axiom defending against Briggs and Inamura. Not to sound like a broken record, okay, but Briggs and Inamura being afforded this title match when they're literally 1-0 in NXT, despite being on the brand for 2 months, is ridiculous, particularly given they're getting this opportunity on a PLE. That should require beating former champions to get a title match in a one-shot deal. at a minimum. There's a great chance this winds up as one of the best matches on the entire show, but the build here and the logic behind the challengers getting this opportunity left a lot to be desired. Fraxium getting called up to the main roster, that should be a priority in 2025. They were the best tag team of the year by a mile in 2024. I believe unanimously, though obviously what counts the most is the 2024 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties. And this team would inject a ton of life into the Raw division, but I see no reason to bring them aboard until after WrestleMania at the earliest. So that would put them dropping the titles at Stand and Deliver on the table. Vengeance Day against this team would make even less sense than Briggs and Inamura getting the title shot in the first place. So I absolutely cannot predict that as an outcome. I have Fraxium retaining the titles. There are a couple other teams on this brand, NQCC being one of them, that does make sense to take the straps off Fraxium. Briggs and Inamura in their second ever match is not that team. Javon Evans will fight Ethan Page in a singles match, I believe without a stipulation. There was a video package for this match featuring a doctor who said Evans' jaw is healing well from reconstructive surgery. Given the timeline for the match, they expedited the process and cleared him for in-ring action. But the doctor has concerns about a re-injury, and a new fracture could keep him out at least 6 months, if not permanently. What kind of quack doctor clears a dude just because he wants to be cleared? Where did WWE find this guy? Next to the strip clubs on Orange Blossom Trail? Are we sure this guy wasn't dressed like a doctor for Halloween and they just found him on the street or some bullshit?
Now go home and smoke some more crack.
Javon was able to speak backstage with Ava saying since the doctor cleared him, it's a risk he needs to be willing to take. Ava made him sign a liability waiver, putting any negative effects stemming from the match on him rather than the company. At least that part made sense, especially after they didn't sign a no-touch clause a week ago when she had previously suspended him. You'll remember I said, it's ridiculous. She rescinded the suspension, but said, okay, yeah, now you can just have a match and like you just got to get cleared. But that wasn't why she suspended him. She suspended him because he kept going after Ethan Page. So there should have been a no-touch clause. They didn't do that. At least they signed this. So a step in the right direction. Page later cut a tape promo on Evans saying he's got a long career ahead of him with multiple title reigns, and he has a chance even to be the face of NXT, maybe even WWE. Risking all of that and his multi-million-dollar smile just to fight Page shows that Javon has a 10-cent brain. Page promised to shatter his jaw and end his career. This was excellent from Ethan. This new diabolical character kicks the shit out of what he did in AEW and even the way he debuted in NXT. This is the type of guy who should again be NXT champion sooner than later. This is the type of guy, a top-level heel, that you can build a company around. And I know people want him on the main roster. The main roster is pretty damn full, folks, okay? I'd much rather the likes of Ethan Page and Ricky Starks get a year, 2 years of run in the main event of NXT than try to find their way as like mid-carders at best on the main roster. I'm not saying that they couldn't be better than that. I'm just saying that's where they would be right now if they got moved over there. This is probably the most difficult match to predict on the entire card. Really, I would book Page to win. If I had the pencil and I was figuring all this out, I'd have him win the match simply because the character is working so well. Javon is coming in with an injury, so there's a built-in excuse. And the elevation of Ethan coming out of this with a win is much greater than Javon just getting some revenge. He's still young. He's still nowhere near the world title picture. What exactly does this do for him outside of maybe push him a little bit in the North American title scene? So if I was booking it, I would have Page win, but that's not what this segment is about. This segment is about making predictions. They have a red-hot babyface the fans are going to be completely behind, and I do think they go with him, so I do have Javon winning this match, but I certainly hope I am wrong. Trick Williams is going to fight Eddie Thorpe in a strap match. Thorpe got a promo package saying he's been treated like shit by the NXT brass, people talking down to him, all while Trick's name has been chanted through the building. Then he challenged for this stipulation. Simple, predictable. Williams later in the crow's nest wearing a headband for some reason accepted the challenge. He promised to look him in the eye and whoop his ass. Now look, again, doing a strap match in February is certainly a decision. There's no question Thorpe has been presented better of late, especially compared to what he was presented before as. I just still find it immensely tough to actually care about him or believe in him, especially in a match like this. against someone with the cachet of Trick. You know what I mean? Williams came across really strong in his promo. Definitely a fresh attitude from the happy-go-lucky Trick we normally get. I'd like to see him work on this longer term. I want him to be faced with a lot more adversity. Maybe the match is being booked this way for that particular reason. But at the end, I just don't believe you can have Thorpe legitimately go over Williams, stipulation or not. So I have Trick walking out of this with the dub. Fallon Henley will be fighting Stephanie Vaquer for the North American Championship. Now, we did discuss what happened with Fallon and some of the other baby faces backstage, or not just baby faces, but potential challengers backstage, all kind of wanting to become number one contenders. But there was really no build whatsoever for this involving Vaquer, which was disappointing. I know they can't get everyone on the show, and I know Vaquer got an opportunity the prior week, but it's a premium live event card. You only got a few matches. Really, everyone should get an opportunity. This is another tough match, right? Because a title change here would make a lot of sense. Fallon is immensely talented. Stephanie is truly, if you were to line up every single woman in this company, main roster and NXT, in terms of in-ring talent and ability, she's top 5. And you really want her to kind of come out of this with a championship alongside Henley. But there's this interesting situation developing where, Julia's already the women's champion. You want Stephanie to have a big moment probably at Stand and Deliver. So her just coming out of this and winning the title immediately after Henley won the title, and has not had that long of a reign with it, by the way, I think it's a little bit too soon. Henley has an entire faction, or I should say group, that has her back. As they kind of previewed and hinted at, Stephanie has no one that has her back. And even if she does, it would be someone kind of coming in last minute, nothing that's actually been established. So because of that factor, I have Henley retaining the title here. I wouldn't be surprised if Vaquer won, and WWE just decided to go with the best women possible, holding these titles going into Stand and Deliver, knowing there's other amazing women on this roster that can contend for them. Obviously, Roxanne Perez, certainly Cora Jade's being built up. Jordan Grace is coming in. There are plenty of potential challengers out there. But with 2 months left until Stand and Deliver and Henley just getting the title, I really don't think you flip it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Henley to retain the championship here. From one women's match to another, we'll go to the women's championship. Julia defending against Bayley, Roxanne Perez, and Cora Jade. Roxy complained to Ava backstage about making this match a 4-way, with Bayley saying dressing like her is the best Perez has ever looked.
I was up all night.
And she also called her an ugly idiot. There was also a frenemies moment with Jade that kind of concluded this. It wasn't much overall, but Bayley got quite a pop insulting Roxy, and it was a fun segment overall. Julia just won this championship. We could go through the whole machination of I'll give you the positive and negative, the case and the anti-case for all 4 of these women walking out with the championship, but it's just really unnecessary. Could they theoretically flip it from Julia to Cora and then have them run that back and Julia take the title back and then go into Stand and Deliver with it? Yes, they could. Does Roxy winning this make any sense? Absolutely not. Bayley winning it certainly does not make any sense. It's pretty clear to me that Roxy and Bayley are going to fight a major singles match, whether that's at Roadblock, whether that's a TV main event, whether that's actually something that happens at Stand and Deliver. All of that remains to be seen, but you're not going to have one of them come out of this with the title and then feud with each other. Julia retaining makes by far the most sense. Again, she just won the championship in a pretty damn big moment, so why would you move away from that? So, as much as this match is interesting, and I'm immensely looking forward to all 4 of these women wrestling together, Julia walking out with the title is really the only booking that's possible. And finally, we move to the NXT Championship. Oba Femi defending against Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Oba on NXT said it was actually a handicap match Saturday, except the egos of A-Town Down Under would implode, leading them to fight one another. The heels answered with Theory completely putting Waller over, and Waller only responding with light compliments. He even snapped at Theory when he tried to put himself over, saying no one cares that he won the United States Championship or that he beat John Cena at WrestleMania. Theory shot back about Waller never holding singles gold, so he thanked himself for grabbing the tag team titles at WrestleMania. Ultimately, they came together, deciding to take care of Femi before worrying about which one of them actually wins the title. Then it looked like they were actually getting contentious at each other again. All of it was a ruse. Oba was celebrating the implosion. A-Town Down Under just took him out. First, a shot to the face, then A-Town Down from Theory, and then the rolling stunner from Waller. They both looked at the title, but they shook hands. They dropped it on his body. It was actually an extremely well done go-home segment and a really unique way to build a triple threat with the team not imploding prior to the match. Whether that will happen Saturday obviously remains to be seen, but Oba getting outsmarted and being taken down was not something we normally see happen with the big man. Now look, if Silver King had the pencil, I'll tell you exactly the way I would book this, because as I've said on this show, as much as I love Oba Femi and think his ceiling is WWE champion and WrestleMania main eventer, I truly believe all of that. I also believe there was no reason whatsoever to rush the NXT championship on him. So if I had the pencil, I would have Theory pin Waller, win the NXT title, and move down to NXT and have a 6-month reign. Win it all the way through, not win it here, he would already have it at that point, but carry the title all the way through Stand and Deliver through the summer, ultimately drop it back to Oba or Trick or whoever else they want to drop it to. But with Ricky Starks now on this brand, and with Oba already a dominant force, and Theory and Waller still main roster talents, of course that is immensely unlikely. The booking that makes the most sense by far is Oba retaining the title. Fingers crossed that he pins Waller instead of Theory, because, I mean, Austin does still have the higher ceiling. And I just wish that this would develop into something where Theory and Waller either get split on the main roster or completely come together as a team and actually make waves in the tag team division on Raw or SmackDown, because they do work well together. They cut promos well, they wrestle well, all of it. But they are just not really taken seriously, and it's a total waste of both their talents. So I have Oba walking out with the championship. That also means I have no title changes on this show, which really should not be that surprising, given it is, again, 2 months until NXT Stand and Deliver. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade, this card is fantastic. I mean, top to bottom quality matches. If you asked me going in, just looking at what's on the card, if everything got equal time, which would be the best match on the show, I would tell you Fallon Henley and Stephanie Vaquer. I legitimately believe that. I don't know if it'll ultimately be the case. The Fraxium tag team match with Briggs and Inamura, I mean, that could delight. There's no question about it. Javon and Paige, with the way Evans wrestles, could be awesome. Williams and Thorpe, I think most would agree, will probably be the down point on the show. And Julia, Bailey, Perez, Jade, awesome match. Femi, Theory, and Waller has the potential to be an awesome match. Just depends the way it's booked. So I am pretty high on this card coming in. It really takes a quality major show card for me to go in with an expectation grade in the A range. And I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to be at an 89 though, a B+. I truly believe this is going to be an awesome show. Whether that comes to fruition remains to be seen, but being at an 89, it gives WWE the opportunity to stay in B+ and underdeliver, and also slightly exceed expectations and get into that A- range. I cannot see any scenario where this is an A card, and I'd be shocked if it was anything lower than a B-, just the way it's been put together. So definitely have high hopes and expectations for NXT Stand and Deliver. Moving over to AEW. In terms of match relevance this week, 7 of 13 earned the distinction of being storyline relevant. So not only short of the 75%, back below the 2/3 mark that we hope to achieve. But there was a reason for this. AEW fell short because 5 of the 6 matches that were not relevant were squashes. It was a ridiculous and repetitive amount of 30 and 90-second matches, more so than I can ever remember AEW doing in a single week, even when Rampage was on the air. Dynamite was nevertheless a second straight super entertaining show. Collision drew rave reviews on Saturday. I did not feel the same way about it. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't think it was some remarkable show like others were crowing about. Certainly better than it had been. Dynamite definitely was better head-to-head. And what I can certainly say is the last 3 episodes in a row, so Dynamite, Collision, Dynamite, have all been big steps up from what AEW was putting on television recently. So that is hugely important. And let's just hope they keep that momentum, because I'm going to be positive about a lot of stuff that happened on AEW this week. There was a fan sign on Dynamite. This is one thing I won't be positive on. It read, quote, "At least AEW doesn't have an untalented hack saying yeet." Ironically, doesn't, in the sign was misspelled. It was missing an N, which just goes to show the intelligence of this person or lack thereof. Given AEW would kill to have a wrestler as over as Jey Uso. Yes, they have people who are over. They would love to have someone that sells merchandise at his rate, that gets fan reactions like him, etc. People may not like Jay. That's fine. Calling him untalented or a hack is straight up laughable. And you can bet your ass fans would be saying all yeet wrestling and chanting yeet if he was in AEW. You know why? Because he's over like we're over, brother. Simple as that. We talked about the John Cena sign being the best sign of the year on Tuesday's show. This is officially the worst sign of the year for now. We'll see if anything can supplant it at the bottom of the list. Let's go ahead and talk about everything that happened across Dynamite and Collision that does not directly impact the Grand Slam Australia show. Then on the back end, we will have your Grand Slam Australia Ultimate Preview. On Collision, Max Caster told hanged person Adam Page that he can get in line to fight him because he has an open challenge ongoing. Isn't the point of an open challenge that Page could just go fight him whenever he wants? There's something about the way Caster is cutting promos. It's kind of odd. I'm sure it's purposeful. It just comes across as strange. I can't exactly put my finger on it. On Dynamite, Caster opened the show, which was a decision. He talked shit about Acclaimed, and he said he was the mastermind. And then Hangman answered the open challenge.
Thank you!
Glad they did that. Caster ran away, hit in the crowd. Hangman found him, won a squash with a buckshot lariat. Big pop, babyface reaction, cowboy shit chant, all of which was the point of doing it this way. Too many squashes in AEW this week. This one worked. This was an exception to the rule. On Collision, Ricochet and Swerve Strickland apparently got into it during a Defy show. Bun B of UGK was then backstage promoting his Trill Burgers when Ricochet came up, hating on him for being friends with Swerve. He took a bite, spit it out, then pulled the dude over the counter, yelling at him for talking back. Ricochet has been taking some major steps forward of late. This was absolutely a step backward. Super forced, unnatural. I don't even blame him. The setup sucked. On Dynamite, Ricochet cut a promo, probably taped on Saturday, saying he was moving on from Swerve. He was going to go back at Rick in a promo when Prince Nana stopped him, saying he should focus on Jon Moxley and the AEW title. Swerve said he lost the Hangman feud, and that cost him everything, so he can't let that happen again. Swerve does not need to win this feud, and they absolutely should rematch. It's already done enough to elevate Ricochet, so even though Swerve doesn't need it, I would have him win a rematch and then just kind of end it. Don't do a rubber. 2 matches. Rick got the first. Swerve gets the second. Move on. On Collision, Dustin Rhodes squashed a jobber in 30 seconds. Why? Who knows? Then he basically repeated what he said 3 days earlier, adding that through a career spanning 5 decades, there's nothing MJF can do to him that hasn't been done before. Dustin closed by saying fans will remember him when he retires. Will that be the case for MJF? Good promo as usual from him. Rhodes then pretty much repeated the same promo for a third time on Dynamite. On Dynamite, MJF was cutting a promo backstage when Hangman demanded he leave. Page was aggressive right off the jump, but MJF cut him down, saying clearly everything he was doing wasn't working, and he was basically just a facade at this point. He promised to become a 2-time AEW champion before him. This was easily MJF's best promo since he returned to TV from injury. This is the MJF who draws ratings and put asses in seats. I'm looking forward to this feud. I presume the Jeff Jarrett feud has probably been cooled off and dropped at this point. At least that's what I hope has happened, but we will find out. On Dynamite, MJF beat Dustin via referee decision. Fans were on fire right out of the gate, like on their feet hot. This was Dustin's hometown. That's the reason for it. False finish on reversed crossroads by Dustin. MJF faked the knee, catching Rhodes for a pile driver. The referee took a chair off Dustin's arm as MJF tried to snap it. Then he took 5 minutes getting rid of this chair so Rhodes could ring MJF's bells and hit Final Reckoning for a false finish. MJF came back with the same move for a false finish, then locked in Salt of the Earth. He broke it himself to stop a rope break, then put a crossface for a pass-out finish. I would have loved the submission. That's literally my only note on the entire match. Great wrestling from bell to bell. Old school feel to it. The aging veteran underdog giving the young buck all he could ask for, ultimately not being able to get the job done. 4 stars, A-. MJF locked in Salt of the Earth again after the bell. That led Page to the ring for another face-to-face. MJF backed away, then tackled him. They did a pull-apart brawl. They went into the crowd. Fans chanted, "Let them fight." A fan gave MJF his beer, so he just threw it right on the guy's sweater. And you know what? The fan deserved it. If you give a beer to MJF, he's a piece of shit. Of course he's going to throw it right back at you. MJF then cut a promo calling Page a loser. That led Hangman back out to briefly restart the brawl. Excellent stuff from both of these guys. I know people loved that Kenny Omega-Will Ospreay duel a couple weeks ago. I found that to be rather paint by numbers, despite the cool shot of them flipping from heights. I get it. For me, this was way better. It felt real and raw. Hatred bubbling to the surface for both guys. The weekly teases, the backstage segment, the 2-part brawl with the promo in between, and obviously a great match with MJF and Dustin. That's helping revive this guy as a wrestler. Really, the only way to improve it would have been Hangman getting a real match early in the show instead of a squash. But again, that's a minor note when all is considered here. Just fantastic stuff all around. On Collision, Kyle Fletcher beat Mark Briscoe in a 15-minute main event. Briscoe got bloodied with a near crimson mask and ate a double underhook powerbomb late. He reversed into a fisherman's buster, then went for a cutthroat driver, but Fletcher grabbed the referee's shirt to prevent it. Then he low-bowed Briscoe, hit a brainbuster for a false finish. Briscoe no-sold a half-and-half suplex, ate 2 more. He avoided a top rope move, then hit a standing froggy bow, taking Fletcher off his feet through a ringside table. Briscoe added a second in the ring for a false finish, but Fletcher escaped Avalanche J-Driller, hitting an Avalanche brainbuster on the top turnbuckle for the win. He cut an angry, kind of nothing promo, though, after the bell. Excellent match, stole the show Saturday night. At one point, I felt like Briscoe was getting too much. Then I remember this guy's a recent ROH champion, and he was booked well in the Continental Classic, so he got an appropriate amount of offense. Fletcher still won clean and decisively. He looked great doing it. He got heel heat for the victory. There was some legitimate chemistry between these two guys, and they went hard. Borderline 4 stars, 4.25 stars, A- range, right there with the women's tag team match from Raw this week. That's how good this was. On Collision, Undisputed Kingdom beat Daniel Garcia and 2.0 plus Shane Taylor Promotions in a triple threat trios match. Taylor hit a nice and safe package pile driver. He got taken out with high-low. Adam Cole then lowered the boom for the win. Fun, high-energy opening match. Really nice way to start the show. There also seemed to be a tease for Cole and Garcia, possibly in a TNT title match. Death Riders attacked after the bell while actually wearing the trio's titles, which was hysterical, given we haven't seen these things in months. Undisputed saved Cole from being held down. Then they challenged for the titles. The heels later cut a promo promising to make an example out of them. It really was not much of anything, the promo. The graphic was ready 5 seconds after the challenge in the ring, which is still an AEW flaw. Cole did not exactly sound like his normal self. I'm not sure what was up with his voice, but this is also coming from someone right now who doesn't sound like himself and has a problem with his voice. Undisputed has won 3 straight trios matches, so this challenge was appropriate. This is really all I'm asking AEW to do. Make challengers legit and make title matches matter. It shouldn't be that hard. This is a paradigm of it. On Dynamite, we got the trios title match. Death Riders retained over Undisputed, which was the right booking and to be expected given they've yet to do anything as champions. Claudio Castagnoli did a double suplex by himself. Kyle O'Reilly got knees up on a fastball toss. That was a 3 count, but it was ruled a false finish. Wheeler Yuta then took a high-low for a broken fall, but after an extended distraction involving a chair, he low-blowed O'Reilly and caught him in a small package for the win. Immediate post-match attack because it's AEW. Garcia team saved, cleared the ring. I hope that this trio, which just lost consecutive matches, the Garcia trio, is not about to get their own title shot. Save made sense. They're all baby faces. Extremely fun match. A lot of action that made the crowd care about both teams and perhaps even the titles, despite them being absent for so long. On Dynamite, Willow Nightingale was being interviewed backstage about returning to Japan when Shafir just kicked her in the stomach and threw her into some like plexiglass bars or something. Holy shit. Marina Shafir attacked a woman. Can you believe it? Remember when Willow once or twice actually tried to go at Marina and then completely forgot she existed for months? This was actually frustrating that it was Shafir going after a random woman who doesn't even have a championship as opposed to a babyface actually standing up to her after all of this time. It is such odd booking. The Death Rider storyline is a literal death. On Dynamite, the Tag Team Championship was on the line. Hurt Syndicate retained their titles over the Guns in the main event. I enjoyed this match the way it was booked. The Guns got a decent amount of offense. There was a false finish with a Famouser. At that point, the champions were like, nah, bump that. And they just completely overpowered them with a deluge of offense and signatures, plus a Bobby Lashley spear to end it. That's exactly how a team of powerful veterans should operate, with force. Fans were all about them, even chanting their theme, and this has proven all of us right. All of us who wanted more Hurt Business in WWE and were mad it ended too early and then wanted it brought back and didn't get it. It's obviously proven these guys right as well. People like this gimmick. It's ridiculous not to go with it. I'm glad it's getting over so strongly. I do wish we were getting more from Lashley specifically on the mic. He kind of just like exists. And this is a former world champion in WWE, a former MMA fighter. He should be more prominent in this group than he's being booked, but you know, it's a small price to pay for something that is entertaining and improving the program. On Collision, Lance Archer and Brian Cage beat up some random guys backstage. Mark Davis didn't want to join, but Cage told him that was part of being in the Don Callis family, so he had a dude with a monitor. I've seen a lot of backstage wrestling beatdowns. This was bottom 10% all time. After the Syndicate match, they came out and sarcastically clapped. So I guess they want a challenge. They're going to be title fodder. Why do they deserve a challenge? Because they've beaten a couple jobbers. I mean, that's ridiculous. On Collision, there was a promo package for FTR saying they can only be the greatest tag team if they hold the titles a third time. I obviously like FTR. This entire gimmick of we're the greatest tag team because we've won all these titles and we're old school, unlike everyone else, it's super tiring, super repetitive. It was tiring 2 years ago. They're still doing it in 2025. Do something different. Do something fresh. On Collision, Powerhouse Hobbs challenged Big Bill, saying he would be in attendance at Dynamite looking for a fight. So on Collision, Bandito beat Brian Keith in his return match. The build was limited for this, but they at least previewed it last week. Keith hit an avalanche exploder suplex. They wound up back-to-back and did a full Western standoff duel, taking 5 to 7 paces into the corner, hitting simultaneous claymores in the middle of the ring. Exceptional professional wrestling spot. Probably the moment of the entire week. Bandito then hit the 21-plex, a rebound German suplex off the ropes, and got the win. Lots of fun. The duel spot alone made this entire 10 minutes of match worthwhile. It was fantastic. On Dynamite, Chris Jericho backstage said the loss to Bandito was a teachable moment for Keith. Apparently someone's watching Chase U videos. Then he challenged him to a showdown. The lights went purple, and they stood across the ring from each other, Jericho and Bandito. A bell rang. Then Keith pulled Bandito's leg, and the heels attacked. Outrunner saved. Big Bill attacked. Hobbs saved. They brawled. The duel with Bandito and Keith was great. Immediately going back to it is how you take something that seemed spontaneous and fun, and you begin to completely overdo it. Fingers crossed it was a one-off Jericho thing, and they used this sparingly going forward. Regarding Hobbs and Bill, it's time to shit or get off the pot. Hopefully it's on TV one of the next couple of weeks as a feature match. On Collision, La Faction Ingobernable beat 3 jobbers in 90 seconds. It was the third squash on Saturday alone. Commander saved an attack 1-on-3, hitting Beast Mortos with the springboard Poison Rana. The heels tried to rip off his mask. Hologram saved, making his return. He had a nice new graphics package, but the gear was basically the same. The lame H everywhere. AEW left a blue light flashing during this action, similar to what WWE used to do with Sin Cara. With the other 4 backstage, Roosh straight up knocked a referee out with a forearm. Post-match attack, 2 saves and a referee beating. It was a lot in one segment. I'm going to reserve judgment on this. I want to see what's up with the referee deal, how often these guys wrestle. But the team of Commander and Hologram, it's at least interesting. On Dynamite, Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata beat 3 jobbers in 90 seconds. Sound familiar? There was no legal man established because all 3 guys just attacked simultaneously at the bell. Joe's always fun. This was stupid indie wrestling booking. It was also repetitive from Collision. And it was the 5th match across 2 shows this week. That was a squash. Joe cut a promo basically saying they're vicious and they're coming after the patriarchy. He called his group the Ops 3 different times to really hammer it home, which just felt super forced for a 45-year-old. I mean, I love Joe. I'm younger than him. I don't call people ops. I let Kendrick Lamar call people ops. I let younger people use terms like that. I mean, that's not something for us to be saying, but okay. They're the ops. Again, it's just a really forced name. On Collision, Megan Bayne big-timed Thunder Rosa backstage, basically ignoring her as she welcomed Bayne to AEW. This preceded a Rosa babyface promo for her match. On Collision, Rosa beat Penelope Ford. This was built over a couple of weeks, but there really wasn't much story to it. It was just Ford wanted to fight her. Poor match that ended with a Tijuana bomb. Bayne entered afterward, distracting Rosa as Ford attacked with some weak-ass punches. Then Megan lifted her for an F5, and that was it. Bayne looks great. She has presence. I'd have liked a bit more from her as a debuting talent. Also, just like I said with Zarya in WWE, you got to name that F5. What's it called? What's her finisher? On Dynamite, Bayne beat a jobber in 2 minutes. This was the 6th squash across 4 hours of AEW TV this week. Tony Khan has got to be more judicious with this. We've already seen Megan take out Thunder with an F5. Why is she fighting another loser? Why not follow up with Rosa? Instead, Chris Statlander came out for a random match against Ford, which she won in 9 minutes. So Penelope came back, had no real storyline with Thunder, lost, then fought Chris without even an attempt to generate a reason for the match, and lost. Bayne re-entered after this. Ford knocked Stat out of the ring, and Megan hit an F5 ringside. Okay, so we can presume Bayne and Ford are teammates, and they're going to fight Thunder and Chris. Okay, I guess. My distaste for all of this booking aside, because it is immensely lazy.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
It was cool to see Bane and Stat up against one another. So that moves us to the AEW Grand Slam Collision, I guess, Australia show. Before we actually preview the matches on Grand Slam, we do need to discuss the circumstances surrounding this show. I've purposely not addressed this on the program just because there's been so much controversy around it, but just as we spoke at great length about WWE moving Money in the Bank a few years ago from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas to, I believe it was the MGM Grand Garden Arena in 2022, we have AEW here moving Grand Slam from Suncorp Stadium, which had a listed capacity of 52,500, to Brisbane Entertainment Centre, which is listed at 13,500. So a difference of 39,000 seats. That's just based on listed capacity. Furthermore, even though every single item about the initial promotion for this show led one to believe it would be a pay-per-view event with an appropriate caliber card, it is now airing as an episode of Collision on Saturday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, attempting to garner some ratings off of NBA All-Star Weekend. The card as it stands has one legitimate pay-per-view match, a second that would be legitimate on a pay-per-view, just due to fan excitement, and then a couple others that are pretty much just TV matches. The contention from some of these AEW defenders out there is that Grand Slam has never been a pay-per-view. That's completely accurate. It's also never been a primary episode of Collision. It's also never been held in February, only September. It's also never been a single show, only a 2-part TV special with Dynamite as the main featured event. Furthermore, while the first Grand Slam did 20,000 at Arthur Ashe Stadium, attendance has declined annually, 13,000, 11,000, 8,000, all in the same venue. So let me put this bluntly. There is no way that AEW booked its first ever show in Australia at a 52,000 seat rugby stadium expecting to air a TV special. This was meant to be, and more importantly, it was priced to be a 4-hour pay-per-view or at least a 4-hour streaming special on Max. And anyone telling you otherwise is gaslighting you, expecting you to put all logic aside. There is no way AEW booked that venue and set prices that high for a 2-hour television show. Their B show, by the way. The fact is, AEW misread the market. Plain and simple. That happens. As I said, WWE literally did the same thing for Money in the Bank in 2022. We called it out when they booked it, and we proved to be correct when they then moved the show. The difference between that and this, at least as memory serves, is WWE refunded those tickets. They started a brand new on sale at MGM Grand Garden Arena. AEW and whatever Brisbane partner, more so the partner, I'm sure, told fans, tough shit. No refunds. We'll relocate your tickets. By the way, these venues are 14 miles apart, and local fans have told us, we've gotten DMs about this, that there are major transportation concerns. So to say this is a cluster might be an understatement. To that end, by the way, we will not be doing an instant analysis for a TV special starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday, particularly because it's basically a collision. So I just wanted to set everyone's expectations. We will have that NXT Vengeance Day instant analysis. I forgot to mention it, Saturday. As soon as that show goes off the air, we're not going to then watch this show and then do another instant analysis after that. It's just not going to happen. So we will go ahead and talk about it next Thursday in this spot because it is basically an episode of Collision. Let's talk about all the matches on this card. Continental Championship will be on the line. Kazuchika Okada defending against Buddy Matthews. On Collision, Okada was late for a sit-down interview with Matthews, who said after he arrived that Kazu does not know he's capable of beating him. He basically asked whether Okada respected him. Kazu said, bitch. Buddy faked the punch. He winced, and that was it. This was an awful segment. It makes sense for Matthews to be placed on the show because it's in Australia, but the booking for him to receive this title match has been straight up horrendous. He hasn't earned it. He doesn't deserve it. Again, I love Buddy. It's ridiculous for him to have this match based on AEW booking. There's no scenario in which he should win the title here. Okada retains. TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné defending against Harley Cameron. Yes, this was booked this week on television. On Collision, Harley did a halftime show with a guitar in her hands and a Mercedes puppet in her backpack. She did a chorus of this Money Train song before Moné interrupted her, insulting her. It started rough, but Harley turned it around, nearly calling her a C-U-N-T in sing-song. Mercedes again stopped her, saying Harley is talented. Then she took a shot at her implants, and she said her puppet could wrestle better. Cameron admitted she has ways to go in the ring, but she got emotional, saying she's fighting to improve and wants to fight in her home country. Then she said the most entertaining Mercedes has been was with Harley's hand up her puppet ass. Monet smacked her, Cameron hit her with a microphone, and Mercedes accepted the challenge, promising to embarrass her. All I saw this weekend was how this was an incredible segment. It was not at all. But it was absolutely a fun segment, and Harley had 2 great lines with the C-word tease and the hand up the ass remark. The title match booking remains ridiculous, but at least there was a reason created for Monet to accept it. I'd actually say most of the Harley Mercedes backstage segments were better than this if I was ranking them all, but it got the job done. So let's fast forward to Dynamite on Wednesday. Harley started rapping a diss track to Mercedes' entrance theme, and she used the puppet as well. But then she stopped it short to cut a serious tape promo. This effing woman then spoke Chinese. Seriously, what can Harley Cameron not do? She is so ridiculously smart and talented. My Lord. Cameron said she didn't want to ride the Monet train. She wants to drive it. This was infinitely better than the collision segment. We talked about strapping the rocket to Harley a couple months ago. I told you for weeks, she has been my favorite part of AEW, and I was not exaggerating, and I was not selling other people short. Harley has been my favorite part of AEW for the better part of 2 months. Look what is happening now that AEW is going with her. This is awesome stuff. And I'm going to tell you something. AEW should pull the trigger with Harley, strap her up with the TBS title on Saturday. I'm being completely serious. Mercedes can win it back Wednesday. She can win it back at the next pay-per-view. She would not be hurt one iota by Cameron catching her with a crucifix or a small package or something like that. Harley has so much babyface momentum right now, you cannot waste it. At a minimum, this needs to be an extended match with a couple false finishes, but they should absolutely flip the strap, make her champion again. If you need to change it within a week or at Revolution, then you change it right back. That's perfectly fine. Harley should walk out as the TBS champion. What we have seen from AEW historically is that they don't strike while the iron is hot. So if I'm making a prediction, I take this from the standpoint of if I had to put money on this, then my money would be on Mercedes retaining the title, and that will be my prediction. But I would strap up Harley. I'm just telling you what I would do if I had the pencil. Adam Copeland and Jay White are going to fight Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. There was a lot of build to this. On Collision, Mox opened the show with Shafir tossing a security guard. He said Cope doesn't deserve a title shot and can't throw his weight around. Plus, he just doesn't like him. Ooh, that had to hurt. Then he accepted the match, saying he'll break Cope's neck whenever he wants. Tony Schiavone said, we could read between the lines to learn Cope won't let Mox compete for the title. The dude literally said in the promo, he won't let him compete for the title. Like, Schiavone's the worst, man. This was pretty forced as a segment. It was better energy than usual for Mox, but it just didn't need to be on the show at all. On Dynamite, Mox and Shafir mean-mugged the camera as they do when Copeland attacked Mox and stole the briefcase from Shafir as White used bolt cutters to get it free. So now they've stolen the title that Mox already doesn't want seen. Is he going to be angry wanting the worthless hunk of metal and leather back just so he'll agree to a title match? Or no? That would be antithetical to a promo he literally cut a couple weeks ago. Let's see what happens on the show. So Mox later called the faces dead men walking. Copeland later remarked that he's carried a briefcase before. Wink, wink. And Mox can get it back if he meets him in the ring. So the faces hit the ring for the final segment of Dynamite with Copeland bringing out the Spike 2x4, threatening to show the title if Mox doesn't accept the challenge. Okay. Mox insisted he cares about the title, saying he's its protector and shepherd, and he cares so much that he'll break Cope's neck at Revolution. Copeland started smashing the case anyway. Yuta ran in and ate Blade Runner. Then Pac distracted and Shafir got the briefcase back. The heels attacked. Claudio took Blade Runner. And then Copeland speared Mox to end all of it. So this was nice that the faces got to stand tall. But that's all it took? Copeland threatening to hit a briefcase with a 2x4? Threatening to show the title that Mox said he doesn't care about because it was just metal and leather and worthless? Mox said he was the physical embodiment of the AEW title. Am I the only one who remembers him saying that literally just a couple of weeks ago? As you heard me break down this week, AEW has made a lot of strides in its booking over the last couple of weeks. Some legitimate improvement. Some legitimately interesting and exciting storylines and angles. I've spent the vast majority of this segment praising AEW. This is not an area in which I will praise them. The Death Rider storyline remains awful. Despite the best efforts maybe of Copeland and White, they're trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, but it's still chicken shit. I'm sorry. In terms of this match, you're going to have Mox retain over Copeland at Revolution, so you got to have the baby faces stand tall here. Copeland and White pin Castagnoli, maybe submit him. Maybe it's a referee stoppage with the crossface, whatever the case. But the baby faces win this match, come out of Grand Slam Australia as the winners. And of course, Mox will then retain over Copeland at Revolution in a couple of weeks. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay will fight Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. Did this match need additional build? No. Is it strange that the Go Home Dynamite did absolutely nothing to promote this match, given the Omega Ospreay team up is huge and the fact that it may wind up main eventing the show is important? Yeah, that was immensely strange to me. In terms of the way this gets booked, I mean, Kyle Fletcher's the hometown guy. He's going to be in Australia. But it's Omega and Ospreay, man. I don't care if Don Callis' family has an 8-on-2 advantage. There's no scenario in which they should lose this match. So I have Omega and Ospreay winning. Maybe it gets contentious a little bit between them at some point. But you have Kenny going after the Continental Championship, presumably, at, I guess, All In is the prediction in Texas. So you have to keep him strong. Ospreay has lost a couple matches recently. He needs to be strong. Takeshita is the international champion. Sorry, it's tough to remember all the titles. The international champion. He probably shouldn't lose unless they're going to go to a title match coming out of this. So I'll have Omega pinning Fletcher as the way this ends. And finally, the Women's Championship. Mariah May defending against Toni Storm. On Collision, Mariah beat a jobber who supposedly looked like Toni in 30 seconds. Then she forced her into Storm's black robe and painted her lips red. Probably should have done that before beating her. It would have been a little bit more effective. Luther came out with a shoe on a silver platter, but when Mariah went to use it on the jobber, Toni had replaced the jobber for a surprise headbutt. May then escaped Storm Zero attempt on the steel steps. Extremely well done, much smarter than the prior segment we broke down a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned earlier there were 3 squashes on the show. Knowing this segment was booked in this manner, AEW really should not have done 1, let alone 2 more on Saturday. This one made the most sense by far on Saturday, just like the Hangman one made the most sense by far on Wednesday. 2, fine. 6, not fine. On Dynamite, May cut a backstage promo after the main event, saying she's done everything better than Storm, who is nothing without her. She said that their match would be a mercy killing. It ended rather suddenly. I thought she was going to say more, but ultimately she did not. And that's the go-home build for May against Storm, this big rivalry. You know, generally in a scenario like this, I would make a prediction that May retains the title. The champion keeps it. And you build up the Storm win for a little bit further down the line. I really wish they had saved the reveal that Timeless was doing the acting performance of a lifetime this whole time, as opposed to it being a mental disorder or something that she was suffering through. I just wish they had saved that for the go home or 2 weeks out rather than, I want to say it was 3 weeks out that they did it. It's why this episode had absolutely nothing for a go home for this match. It was really disappointing. I'm sure Storm was already in Australia as well. It's probably why that is part of the case. But in most cases, I would say May retains. You're putting on this show. The fans are immensely disappointed with a pay-per-view turned into a TV show. The other major titles are not on the line. Yeah, the TBS title's on the line, but you know, the AEW championship isn't primarily. And there's a couple, you know, star tag team matches that are trying to fill the void on this card. If you're going to put all this forward, you absolutely, A, should main event the show with this match. And then B, there should be a title change with Storm winning back the AEW Women's Championship. I have to believe Tony Khan is smart enough to do that. And therefore, that is my prediction. Storm beating May, becoming the AEW Women's Champion. So that wraps up the preview for AEW Grand Slam Collision Australia. There's really no pre-show expectation grade for it because it's not a pay-per-view. But I guess if I had to give one, I mean, the thing with AEW is even when the cards are weak, the wrestling is strong and it kind of over-delivers. So I'll come into B+. I'll say an 87 out of 100 for this, but it is a TV special. I wouldn't be surprised if it falls below that. Again, we're not going to have an instant analysis podcast. We will do pre and post show polls, so we can at least go over your expectation grade and your final grade and discuss it next Thursday in this spot when we talk NXT and AEW. But a reminder that we will be back on Saturday with your NXT Vengeance Day instant analysis. That will be episode 700 of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out quickly, we don't need to have a whole dissertation on ratings. I'm just going to read them off for you. NXT did 801,000 and a 0.18. They are continuing to soar, cracking 800,000 again for NXT is absolutely crazy. AEW for Dynamite did 579,000 viewers and a 0.16. So certainly, I think down from last week. I don't have last week's numbers directly in front of me, but I believe they were over 600,000 last week. So ticking down there. Go home show for Grand Slam Australia. Some big stuff promoted on the program. That has to be a disappointing number. Again, I'll just put it like this. The CW got a great deal on NXT. I say it every single time. It's crazy how little they paid for that show, and it remains wild what Max or Warner Brothers Discovery paid for AEW, which continues to tick down from a rating standpoint. At some point, we're going to stop saying that. In fact, maybe this should be the last time that we actually say it. But, it floors me every time I see these ratings. They're not head to head, but I talk about them back to back on the show because they happen on Tuesday and Wednesday and we tape on Thursday. It's always wild for me when I see the numbers heading in different directions and remember how much each company is paying for the respective shows. So look, I gutted through that episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. I went 3 Ricola drops. Hopefully you didn't hear them clanking around in my mouth too much. Throat is pretty raw. So on the way out, let me just hit you with some reminders. First, of course, the Getting Over Wrestling podcast.
It's all about the 5.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we'll read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast, Blue Sky at Getting Over for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. And apparently what I forgot to mention earlier,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news posts every week. You may have seen something going on Twitter on Thursday about WrestleMania in New Orleans. Well, if you subscribe to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, you read that multiple weeks ago. Make sure you sign up. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. That wraps up today's show. We'll be back Saturday with your NXT Vengeance Day instant analysis. We will be back next Tuesday with your WWE show, and 1 week from now, same bat time, same bat channel, back talking NXT and AEW. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.